What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Art of Show. This week we're chatting with a guy who drew just about every single Marvel character you could ever want, and he put them into a kid's book.
Welcome to the Art of Show, where we feature the people who are creating amazing stories for kids. Join us as we chat with children's book illustrators and authors, storyboardists, animators, and more. Now, their art might be for kids, but aren't we all just kids at heart? Here's your host, Brandon.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Art of Show. We're hanging out with the first ever return guest to the Art of Show. This is Cale Atkinson. Cale holds a very special place in my heart because he was actually the first one to say yes to an interview. So when I was just getting going, it was him, and then Dan Santat said yes, and I got to chat with him about his books that came out last year, but he's got a ton coming out this year, and one that just came out in April at the time of this recording was Night Night Groot, and yes, that is Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm sure they were timing it with the release Volume 2, which is coming out very, very soon. It's a fun book. His style is all over it, but what's real cool is he does every character you could think of other than X-Men that are part of the Marvel Universe. So you had the Hulk, you had Captain America, you had Iron Man, you had all of them, everybody from Guardians of the Galaxy. But he put his own spin on it. So it's really fun to talk about what it's like to create a book with other people's intellectual properties, especially those that are really, really, really popular, like Spider-Man. Everybody knows who Spider-Man. And so how he took Spider-Man, put his own take on it, and then put it into a book. And we also get into a little bit of some of the other stuff he has coming out this year, which is a lot of fun. But before we go, would love for you guys, if you guys listen on iTunes, make sure and subscribe, leave a rating and review. That is a huge help. Or if you're watching on YouTube, I would love if you guys could leave a comment below. Let me know what your favorite character is. Hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up. That would be a huge help. So without further ado, let's dive into our interview with Cale Atkinson, talking about all things Marvel. All right, guys. Well, welcome back to the Art of Show. We have our very first return or guest, Mr. Cale, hanging out with us today. Amazing illustrator, and you got lots of books coming out this year. Is it 4? Is that right?
I think it's 3.
Just 3, okay. Just 3, but
yeah,
a lot.
It's like one's out now, and then I have one August, one September this year.
Okay, gotcha. And so the last time you were on, you were talking about Explorers of the Wild, which is still one of my favorites. I think that was the first one that I saw your style, and then if I had a Griffin, it's not a Gryffindor. I'm about to go Harry Potter every time.
That'd be a good spin-off.
Yeah.
Harry Potter version.
Yeah, but that was a fun as well. But you got a bunch of new ones, including Night Night Groot, which we're going to get into. It's a whole Guardians of the Galaxy and the Marvel Universe, which is right there. Yeah, hanging out. And we'll definitely kind of get into the story of how that happened. But we were actually just talking about, you said you got off the phone with Dan Santat, and you work from home. And I don't know if a topic we got into last time, kind of what's that like working remote, but then still finding that like artist community? Like, what's that kind of like for you, and how do you do it?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's like that weird balance where like everything has its like pluses and negatives, like the whole like working in a studio versus like freelancing from home. It's like working in a studio, like the downside is you have to be there every day, certain hours. Where freelance, you can kind of like work from anywhere as long as you have like, your equipment or internet. But with freelance, you don't really generally like you're working from home unless you want to like pay for an office space or whatever. And so it can get kind of like cabin fevery because it's just like you. Luckily, like me and my wife both do freelance, so we kind of work together.
Oh, cool. What's your wife do?
Oh, sorry, what's that?
What's your wife do?
She's also an illustrator.
Oh, cool.
Books and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, she's awesome. If you go to jessvoneye.com, you can check out her work, and it is the best.
Yeah, I'll make sure to include a link in the show notes.
Yeah,
That's sweet.
Yeah, her work's great. So we both do the same thing, which is great because we can kind of like critique each other and all the rest, and both understand each other. So if we're working at like 1 a.m, the other one kind of gets it. It's like, yeah, I've been there. But anyway, still, it's just the two of us, and it can still get cabin fevery anyway, right? Because you're just at home. And so the one nice thing has been like some of us, and I know other illustrators and artists do this, but kind of have like almost like a Skype group. Mm-hmm. So you can just kind of like hop on at any time and you just leave it running while you're working. So like sometimes it'll be quiet and no one really has anything to say. Other times you're talking movies or being able to like create each other's work. So if you do have something you want to share, you can kind of put it on and screen share or whatever and get some feedback. So like Dan is on it, and Mike Bolt, who's also a really great illustrator, and Renee Carilla, who's also a really great children's illustrator, will be on it a bunch. But it can be nice, and just again, like social interaction.
Yeah.
Because I love working at a studio for the people, because you actually get to talk to people and get excited about stuff, and then when you're just at home, you're kind of like, okay, I could try to put that in my social media, but now, like, especially these days, social media has become kind of like a black hole of horribleness.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of like, okay, I don't want to be really depressed, so maybe I won't go on there right now. And then, being able to talk on there has been a nice outlet for that. How did
that start up?
I think it wasn't like I joined a lot later in on their kind of chat. I think it was Dan, Mike, and James Burks. He is also another like awesome illustrator and writer. I know they've been doing it for a long time, but I think it just started from like probably meeting on social media and then being like, hey, let's chat and actually have a conversation.
That's cool. That's really cool. Has there been any, whether story elements or illustration elements, as you've thought through your books, that having that group has kind of helped you think through different problems? Any specifics to stand out?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I mean, like, I think it's like the biggest thing, especially with writing is, and I guess with illustrating, is like the bubble, like you just get in your personal bubble and you can't see past it, And, and so just have somebody mention an idea or a thought that just kind of like breaks that bubble can be so helpful. And whether or not it's the exact idea or it just kind of like is the launch off point, it's totally helpful. Like I'll go to Jess first. She's right here and I trust her opinion. And then it's just nice to get others, especially other people who you respect their work or you can kind of like take that feedback and know they know what they're talking about too.
Have you and Jess ever worked on a project together? Like a book project together?
No, not really. We usually have our own stuff going and just kind of like we'll help each other out on it with like any feedback and stuff.
Yeah,
but we haven't done it yet. I think we're both, I don't know, got our own thing going. We're both really good at it, so I can't say like if I wrote something, I don't know. If she wrote something, I'd want her to draw it because her pictures are amazing, and vice versa. If I write something, I have it all envisioned. So I haven't done it yet.
I was talking with Leywin Pham a little bit earlier this week, and she has done a couple projects with her husband, and they got into, I think she was pregnant at the time, and they got into how to like get over like, I think it should be this way versus I think it should be this way. And then like you're married, so like you're like, all right, let's chill for it. It was those dynamics are always fascinating to me, which are a lot of fun.
Yeah, right. It's something, about mixing like, where it's like relationship plus work, plus it's like a project you both feel strongly about, or like we've kind of like not really, I wouldn't say it's collaborated, but kind of like, because we worked at studios together. Like I've worked with Jess at every studio and art job, well, except for one or two, but almost all of them. I met her at a studio, and then we both left that studio, went freelance work together. Then we got hired at Disney together, and we were put in the same room at Disney to work. And then we both left there, and so it's been kind of funny. But we have like collabed on like studio projects or like work projects. Like I don't count that because it's like you are collaborating, but it's not like your own ideas. You're just doing what you have to do, right? Yeah,
that's fun. That's a lot of fun. My wife, because I like to dabble in like illustrations and stuff on the side, and so I'll be showing stuff to my wife, and sometimes she'll be like, "Do you just want me to tell you good job? Like, do you want to be a wife right now, or like, do you want my actual opinion?" I'm like, just tell me it's good right now. That's all I need. Maybe tomorrow tell me like the portions are off and all that kind of stuff. But
no, that's like that's it. I definitely know that feeling. I'm usually just like, I know she's right. Like even right now, I'm working on a book, and I have to get her feedback, and she'll say something, and I know it's totally right. And you're so angry because it means you have to redo so much. Yeah. You know you have to right away. Like there's no two ways about it. But you're like, oh, and she's like apologizing, and I'm like, no, it's totally true, and I need that brutal honesty. But you're just like, oh God, it's so true. Okay, let's take that out and redo this. It's one of those things. But we're both like very like we're both super like overly like don't want to upset or anything. So we're both like, okay, I don't want to like it looks really good, but there's this one thing, and then you kind of have to be like, no, be brutally honest, just lay it all out. I wanna know.
That's cool. That's real cool. I'm looking at her site right now, and I see the Stranger Things. Some of her artwork on that. So excited for that. And was it Halloween? Season 2's coming out. So
binge on Halloween.
Yeah. It's super random just because it's current events. Are you a Star Wars fan at all?
Yeah. I just watched the trailer.
I was about to say, did you see the trailer?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm holding back it's so hard. Like I think all like Star Wars trailers, especially the trailers, are like cut so good.
Yeah.
Instantly like, oh god, I need more.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like just like keep my expectations like just in a good spot.
Yeah, you're like, I'll just forget about it until December, and then be good to go.
Yeah, I'm just like, my only thing is please just don't let there be like another Death Star in it. That's all.
You're like, I'm tired of these huge ships, and then this one little guy takes out the big ship. Like, we did that plot. Yeah.
Just waiting. Like, the new plan is, it's a bigger planet. That's a Death Star that they're building.
That's good. Well, speaking of franchises, so your latest book is in the Marvel universe. How'd you get connected with Marvel? Because I know this isn't the first project you've done with them.
Yeah, because I've done some comic work with Marvel for Spider-Man, which is kind of funny because both the comics and the book are completely unrelated. So like one I don't think really help the other necessarily. But I did do some Spider-Man comic strip work 2 times now for 2 issues where I got to do my own comic strips and take on the characters with little Aunt May running around doing her own thing and villains, which is great, which is like kind of like a dream come true because I loved like Spider-Man growing up my whole life. I love comic strips, like all of the like in Mad Magazine, all of the Sergio I'm going to say his last name horribly wrong probably, but Sergio Aragons. He did all the a Mad Look At comic strips in Mad Magazine, and he did all the little like marginal like tiny drawings in Mad Magazine.
Okay.
And he's done comic work, and he's just like, he was one of my, and he the comic Groot, which was my favorite comic growing up as well, and his stuff was always super fun and really fun comic strips. And a huge influence on me, so I got to kind of combine those things for these Aunt May comic strips, which were, again, kind of like that childhood dream to be able to do and put Spider-Man in them. And so that came to be. It's actually kind of a funny story with the comic strips and the Spider-Man thing. That started because I did these random animations for fun called Batman and Bear Robin.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen. Yeah, I saw this.
Yeah. And I don't know, just for fun and for no real point, I just love the idea of Batman having a giant bear, Robin, because he like ran out of kids or something. And so I did a bunch of those on a whim, and I don't know, not really thinking anything out of them. But a while after, I got an email from an editor at Marvel, who's the editor I work with, where he was kind of saying like, hey, I love these Batman, Bear Robin things. Unfortunately, I don't work for DC Comics, so I can't commission you to make any, but I do work for Marvel, so let's talk about doing some Spider-Man stuff. And it was just one of those emails where you're like, oh my god, this is the best. And so that's kind of like how those like comic strips kicked off. With the Night Night Groot book, that was more through, I think, like my publishing connections, because I've done 2 of my books with Disney Hyperion, which is part of like Disney Book Group, and Marvel obviously is a part of Disney, so they're all kind of somewhat interconnected there. And I think I'm not sure exactly. I think like my editor I work with kind of had said some help too in recommending me, and so my name got tossed in the pot for doing it. But I still had to do an illustration test before I got the job.
Did they give you a scene?
They gave me, it depends, like on the publisher and the book. For them, they gave me, I believe I had the working manuscript at the time.
Okay.
And so I kind of chose a page or an element that I thought, would be a good picture.
Yeah. What was do you remember the page that you did? For the picture?
Yeah, it's the one where, it actually almost is the exact same image, which is kind of funny. It's the page where Rocket is grabbing Groot out of bed, and it has like the Avengers playing cards and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
That guy. Because it was just like, okay, I'd love to draw like the Hulk and Thor, and then I thought it was like a really fun scene, and it was just one of those ones like sometimes like when doing an art test, it can be a little hard because you're trying to like figure out what's the style you want to do, like what's the background going to be like, colors. It can like sometimes it doesn't come together, and sometimes I find it does. And for this test, it was actually just a lot of fun. I think I did it pretty much in a day, and like I don't generally like doing art tests because it's kind of like an audition for an actor. You put yourself out there, and they're looking at who knows how many illustrators, and it could just be like no, and it's a tough one. The one thing I kind of like is a lot of the time you get paid for an art test. So if they don't choose you, you'll get your like whatever $300 or whatever it is. And then if they do like you and choose you, usually that comes off of your final like amount. So that 300 or 4 or whatever just goes into whatever you get paid for the project. But the one nice thing is you can kind of just do what you want then, right? Like for Groot, I just fully went into my own style because I was like, well, if I do get this project, I want to do it how I would want to do it. I don't want to just try to draw them exactly how they are in a cartoon or comic, and then I would try to mimic someone else's style. So if I get the project, it's going to be a real pain to do.
Yeah.
So I just did it the way I would love to draw the characters. And then at least I felt good with, this one illustration I did no matter what. And then they went with it. And I was, a bit like, I had no idea like if they were going to or not. It's just kind of like you're hoping and you're kind of excited about it. And so when they did go for it, I was pretty stoked.
So you mentioned that you loved that you got to put a ton of characters into the story. And so reading through the text, I don't know if it did it mention that you've got like Spider-Man in there, that you're going to have Hulk in there? Like how much freedom did you have to kind of add those characters to the story?
It was kind of a little bit of mix of both.
Okay.
Like from the get-go, it had a lot of call-outs for like most of the heroes that are in the book, it had call-outs for them.
Okay.
So it would say like, Rocket and Groot run past Red Hulk and She-Hulk, fighting off villains or whatever. And then like the manuscript shifted a number of times. Certain characters got kind of shifted in and out. But then otherwise, like there's one page at the end where like all the heroes are throwing Rocket and Groot in the air in like a celebration. And so for that one, I tried to just add other ones. Anywhere I could really add anything without like taking away from like what's kind of written out. I didn't want to just throw in, a random hero that wasn't called out for that page necessarily. But I tried to like hide anything I could. And I wanted to add anyone I could really think of. It was like if I added another character, it would have been like their head or like half their arm or something, and you wouldn't really be able to tell. But it was really fun getting to like put Spider-Man in there, and there's a lot of little Ant-Man hidden in the book. I don't know if you saw that, which was pretty fun.
Yeah. So what's it like working with an existing character, especially ones like these that are uber popular, even through the comics, and then you've got the movies. Did you have like different things you had to include? Like I know with animation, like they have to be like on model for different things. Like, did you have guidelines for that for the characters, or did you guys kind of have free reign?
There's definitely like certain guidelines. I was surprised a little bit with how open it was in some ways, just because it is transferring into my own style, which I was really thankful that they weren't too technical or picky. But I think there was I definitely had different model sheets to look at. The hard thing can be there's so many versions of the characters now. Like even the Guardians of the Galaxy, there's the movie, there's the comics, there's a cartoon, and so you kind of have all these different influences. And like even in Night Night Groot, there are definitely some of the costumes. I can't remember now, but I'm sure some of them are more the movie costume for certain characters. Some are the cartoon costume. It was kind of just give or take. For some of them, I just put them in what I liked best, and it worked out. For others, it was kind of requested, or certain elements were requested, like make sure you have like the emblem on certain costumes whenever you can, or I'm trying to remember. I think, but it was it was pretty nice overall. I don't remember it going back and forth too much with like those technical details, like, you know, oh, there has to be 5 notches right there, and, you know, 4 laces on that boot, and like some properties can get really picky with super specifications. So I was really thankful that these, like, working with them was actually just a lot of fun. And generally, most of the changes were just through, I think it was through Marvel with what they wanted to show in the book. Like, they didn't want to put in any of like the big villains. I don't know if it's because of like the movie tie-ins and what's happening. They didn't really want to include them.
Yeah.
So that's why I chose a bunch of C-list villains, and I was trying to look up any villains I thought looked really funny. Or were kind of like those retro, like over the top looking villains. Which turned out to be fun. And same with the main kind of like alien villain species in the book. Originally, what were they going to be? What are the, oh, my brain, the basic alien race in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, shoot, yeah.
I can't remember. And they're blue generally. Anywho, it was originally going to be like that species, but then I guess Marvel didn't want it to have them in it. I don't know. Again, maybe it's with the second movie or something. And so I got to design my own random, you know, Marvel alien species, which are my little mustache guys. Called Mustache Menace. And so that turned out to be really fun because I'm like, oh, cool. How often do you get to design like a villain for like a Marvel thing and actually get to put your own spin on it? So like that stuff worked out. But it was just like, that was mostly the back and forth. Like,
that's cool.
They decided not to have like Groot's, or they decided not to have Rocket's gun in it. As being like a little like kids book and stuff, they decided to try to do something else, and that's fair and fine. And so it was just kind of working through any of those little things that came up.
That's cool. So what is it like then? Were there times where you were working on it, like drawing Spider-Man or drawing like the Hulk, and you're like, is this like my job right now? Like, it's because I feel like that'd be stuff like you would just be doing like at times in your life for fun. Like, does that ever kick you or hit you when you're working with like famous characters like that? It's like, is this real life right now?
Yeah, it's pretty surreal. It's like a lot of the time when I was working on this, it would be like the Guardians of the Galaxy soundtrack is on.
Yeah.
You're like coloring, and you're like bringing up parts of the movie to look for reference. Like, okay, what's it look like on the Milano in the background of the spaceship, and you're trying to find like screen caps, and it's definitely surreal. You're like, this is so weird and really cool, and just like you're excited, and there's a tiny bit of you that's like you really want like to do it justice, like something you love, right? You want to put as much as you can, and you want people to like it, and you want everyone to know that you put in like the effort or the time to like show the characters as they are, and not just like do whatever and who cares. And so it was great. It was a blast. Like, it's definitely one of the funnest things I've ever worked on, where you are like fanboying, you know, 3/4 of the time, and then you're trying to make sure the drawings look really good as well. And I'm not really known for doing crazy like action pose characters, right? And in most of my drawings, so it was also definitely a challenge. And like, I wanted all the superheroes to be doing something. I didn't want them all just to be standing, you know, with like one arm up waving. You're like, you want to see Thor throw a hammer, you want to see like in an action pose. And so that was definitely like the biggest challenge for myself. But it was nice because it was like a growing experience. Yeah,
that's cool. Are you familiar with the Jake Parker at all?
Yeah, totally. Awesome.
He had him on the podcast a little while ago, but I was listening to an interview with him today. He was on like the Bancroft Brothers podcast, so like Tony. And he was talking about fan art and like doing fan art, but doing it in your own style. And I think it's cool that you were doing fan art, and that led you to like actually working in like for Marvel, which is cool. But he was talking about just how you develop your own style. They don't just copy it. So if you were to walk through, we'll talk about a character that's on it. So you couldn't put X-Men in there, but if you were going to do Wolverine, like how do you go through all the different iterations of Wolverine, but then draw them like you? Like how does that happen?
Yeah, that's a tough. I think it's like generally for me, it's also kind of like what my experience has been. Like what am I allowed to do would be the first thing. Like if it's free reign, I would like, okay, what's the Wolverine that I love? Because I'm like, you know, grew up like early 90s, like awesome X-Men cartoons. So I want to get like a classic costume. But then there's also like the old orange costume, which is cool. but it was like, it's kind of like, I like to try to break down what are my favorite parts of the characters a lot of the time. Like, and in my own brain, how do I like kind of like picture them with their personality? Like with Wolverine, and he's kind of this burly guy, the short burly guy. So kind of like little legs and like his big upper arms.
That's fun.
And hairy, like Robin Williams hairy. Where it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just like from enjoying something. Like if it was a character I didn't read or didn't know growing up at all, it'd be different. But when it's someone like you've taken in, like from movies and comics and cartoons, you have this big library in your mind of those like elements you always took from each one.
Yeah.
And so it's like, oh, he's got to have a cigar, and like, or like he's in his like outdoorsy jacket with his like yellow plaid shirt or whatever, and jeans and stuff. And like the hair, of course. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of like you start with those elements, and then it's kind of just creating those simple shapes like I'll do with any character, but then trying to like build it up into that character with the things that kind of make them stand out. And like with the characters in Night Night Groot, and a lot of them I've never drawn before, including Rocket and Groot, they all came together fairly quick. And I don't know if it's because of that, because it's something that you've already have this image in your mind because you've enjoyed it, you've loved it, you picture those things you like about them. Whereas like if I had to draw like I'm trying to think of a character that I don't really know or read. Well, even like Doctor Strange, it was before the movie came out, and I didn't grow up really reading Doctor Strange stuff. And so that one was definitely a little bit trickier because I want him to look cool and great and awesome, but I didn't know much actually about him. And so you're wanting to include any of those elements that kind of seem to be important to the character without really knowing, you know?
Yeah.
So like those ones I find are a bit trickier, where when you just love a character, you're kind of almost just excited to go at it.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Because I don't know, but overall, there's just so much out there with these characters that you can kind of really just grab a whole bunch of reference and look up stuff.
How's your process different than where Oliver fits? Is that September? Is that when that was coming out? Which the book cover, the reveal was a ton of fun when I saw that popping up.
Thanks. Yeah, I got that.
The puzzle pieces.
I had to like glue my own puzzle, so I could have.
I love it. So how is the process for like designing Oliver then? How do you approach that versus one of these established characters? How's that different for you?
Oh man, like doing the like your own characters, I find it a lot more challenging. Yeah, for sure, because it's like it's kind of that whole like birthing process where like you may have like that first initial like idea of a character or whatever. So like Oliver's a puzzle piece, or like in Explorers of the Wild, it's like an explorer kid or an explorer bear, and that's easy enough to be like, okay, cool, I have something to start with. But I think it's just like that, like, okay, what's that final point? You know, like, do I give him whatever, a backpack? Should something be sticking out of the backpack? And it's kind of like one, and then once you stick to it, that's it. And so I find it trickier because when you're working with an existing character, it's already there, right? Like, you know, Wolverine's got X amount of things. And that's a good little pun right there. But, you know, he's got a certain amount of things. And you're not really going to do much more than that. But when it's your own character, this is your chance, right? And so it's like, you're not really going to be able to go back. And so you're like, okay, is this like what I want him to be? And I think no matter what, you kind of need to like get a couple iterations out, because it's like drawing anything, right? The amount of times you do it, it's going to tweak a little bit, and you're probably going to like that end one better than like the third or second or first one. But you don't know it at the time. So you draw it the first time and you're like, it's perfect, I love it. And then when you look at that first drawing later on, you're like, that's really weird looking. I'm glad I did, 10 other versions of them. So I think, the process is just, I don't know. And maybe it's just because it's a lot more personal too. Yeah, that's good. All right. So one last question before we kind of wrap up. I saw you were mentioning your color, not scripts, but like color thumbnails. And like one thing, whenever I see your work, it's like, okay, that's definitely Cale, just because it pops off the page. It's so bright, the colors match, and they're so cool. For folks that may not know, how do you like introduce color
to your books. Like even when I was going through Night Night Groot, I mean, just the palettes on each page were just so, they just popped so much, and they felt very like unique to the story too, which was cool.
That's awesome. It's kind of like it differs. I mean, like more than anything, like I'll always tell people who ask me about color stuff is like, I don't really know what I'm doing. Like I just keep trying stuff. Like I'm not like a color theory guy. I probably should learn a bit more about actual color theory. Cause I'm mostly the type to like, I like color thumbnails a lot because you can work in like a tiny canvas and throw colors down, but I'll rework those colors like 100 times and just keep tweaking, you know, the whatever foreground element here, background here, and just keep tweaking colors until it kind of gets what I envision or a surprise that I like. But honestly, like, because right now in the book I'm working on, like literally when I get off this call, I'm working on the same sky background that I painted about like, I don't know, like 10 or 15 times the past day or two. And, you know, still didn't get it. Or now I went in a weird direction and don't like it at all and got to start fresh over here. So it's definitely just something I just tell like anybody just to don't be afraid just to keep changing it or you know, keep trying different colors and then see like, you know, wait until you get something you like. Yeah. It's a weird thing because it's like, obviously I mostly just rely on my eye and am thankful that it works out most of the time. But I don't really know. I could put it out and people could be like, oh man, those colors, don't you know those don't work together? And I'd be like, oh, no, I thought it looked cool. Yeah. So it's definitely like a personal thing. I like trying different colors and I like trying different palettes and trying to infuse some, I don't know, like kind of just interesting takes and stuff. Yeah, but that's cool. But yeah, process is really just play. That's cool. That's real cool. Well, sweet. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me. I didn't even get to, so colors and shapes. I think that's when I saw your stuff come up. So if you guys haven't checked it out, can you give a quick plug for it? I'll make sure and link it in the show notes. Yeah. I just put up, because I have a couple sketchbooks and art books that I've done and I sold at conferences. The first one being colors and shapes. And so it was the first time I really like put a whole bunch of my art that I've created, including kind of breakdowns of where did I start on that piece. That's cool. Yeah. You know, the rough to the color thumb to the clean sketch. And so it's just kind of packed full of art. And I decided to put it up on Gumroad. So if you go on gumroad.com/Cale Atkinson, I think it's there for like $5 or pay what you want. Yeah. $5 or something. But it's just like full of art, and it was kind of a nice way to be able to share that stuff more, because actually printing books, the cost just goes so much higher, and then the shipping cost, and it kind of saves a lot of money and gets it into people's hands easier. Yeah. I love to just, like you said, seeing the process of from the initial idea all the way through the roughs and everything. Because even on your website, you have that little GIF that goes through, like, this is my process. And it's like there's a boat. I forget which book it was from. But this one, I was like, this is really cool. So when I saw that come across, I was like, this is awesome. Yeah, and it's got like behind the scenes kind of stuff from my animations to, you know, illustrations to, I think, like traditional paintings in there, and it's just a nice whole like bit of everything. That's cool. Well, sweet. Well, folks, you've got, I know, more books coming out this year, and people want to keep up with you and what you got coming up next. Any good places to find you? I'm always on the Twitterverse, of course, like 2D Cale on Twitter. Otherwise, I have to get on Tumblr more, but I'm on my Instagram, same name. And then anyone's always welcome to email me. And my website as well always has my next releases of books on it, which is just cale.ca. And usually generally on there. And then in August, I have a book called Little Red Riding Sheep, which is going to be coming out that I illustrated. And September, I have Where Oliver Fits, which is my next picture book that I wrote and illustrated. That's cool. I'm super excited about. Yeah, very cool. Well, good stuff. Well, I appreciate your time. Have fun painting backgrounds and skies the rest of the day. Awesome. Thanks so much for having me back as the first return guest. Yeah, I'm so honored. Yeah, we'll have to do number 3 when next time some more stuff comes out. I appreciate it. Sounds good. All right, perfect. Thanks so much, Brandon. Awesome. Thank you, Cale.